friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Courtney and I am here to talk to you guys about all of the amazing books that I read and some of the not so amazing books that I read. I actually read 17 books in the month of May, which was a great month. We had a lot of 5-star books, so I'm gonna go ahead and tell you about all the books that I read, and I'm going to talk about them in order from my least favorite book to the book that was my favorite of the month. I'm also going to talk to you guys about a book that should have been in my April video. It was my number 2 book of the month last month, and somehow it got cut from my video. So stay tuned and you guys will hear about that one as well. So the first book that I read is Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. And I'm just going to start out by telling you guys that I have an unpopular opinion about this book. This book is getting rave reviews. Everyone seems to be really loving it, and it did not hit for me. I was a little bit disappointed. I might have hyped it up in my own mind before I read it. I don't know. But in this book, we are following Elizabeth Zott, who is, and this takes place in the 60s. Maybe it starts in the 50s, but the majority of the book, I want to say, takes place in the 60s, and Elizabeth Zott is a female scientist. She is a chemist, and she's kind of working in a male-dominated field. She's trying to make her way as a female in the field, which was hard for her, of course, and she's kind of struggling, kind of hating all of her coworkers, until one day she meets Calvin at work, and he is like a super huge, well-known, like famous in the scientific field scientist, and he's like won a Nobel Prize, and they kind of take a liking to each other. He's really the only guy who treats her fairly, and they kind of fall into this romance. But unfortunately, pretty early on in the book, Calvin does pass away, and neither of them knew at the time that he passes away that Elizabeth was pregnant with his child. So she goes on to become a single mother, and she ends up getting an opportunity to star in a TV show where she's able to kind of mesh chemistry with her love for cooking. She's struggling to be a single mother. I don't know why I didn't really enjoy this book. It was kind of a little bit slow for me, just a little bit. I mean, to be honest, it was a little bit boring for me. It was just overall disappointing. I'm sorry to say. I gave this book 2 stars. It's on the bottom of my list for April. I know a lot of people love it though, so if those themes sound like something that you might be into, check out Lessons in Chemistry. You might feel differently than me. Like I said, unpopular opinion on that one. And the next book on the list is going to be The Dinner Guests by Kirsten Modglin. And this one is a Kindle Unlimited book. So if you have Kindle Unlimited, you can read it on there. So we're actually following a set of this group of friends. There's 6 of them, 3 couples in total, who have kind of been together as friends since high school. And they all live on the same cul-de-sac. And so they're very close-knit. So this new couple moves into the neighborhood, and the couples that live there are trying to find out who this new couple is, find out a little bit about them. And this new couple starts doing some crazy things to like their house. They start like putting up walls around the house and bringing in all this like elaborate, crazy security systems. And the couples are trying to figure out like what the heck is going on? Who is this? Is it someone famous that's moving into the neighborhood? And then one day they get an invitation to a dinner at the new couple's house. So they all decide to go, and they go to this dinner, and the couple is a little bit different. They're a little bit bizarre, but whatever the other couples, the group of friends are like, whatever, it seems cool, but let's try to get the tea and figure out what's going on with this couple. Let's try to find out like what they're all about. And as the dinner progresses, some things just aren't going right. And then they start to find like some of them have notes on their plates under their food. And quickly it turns into a situation where it is almost like you are experiencing an escape game or an escape room game. The friends find that they are actually locked in the house after the couple disappears, and they find themselves in a situation where they have to figure out a way out. And this book was just really fun. It was kind of like you're playing along with an escape game. There's codes, there's clues, there's like puzzles to solve to try to get free of this mysterious house. And I gave this one 3 stars. I thought it was fun. It was definitely a quick read, kind of a shorter book. So I recommend this one if that sounds fun to you. The next book on the list is Near the Bone by Christina Henry. And this one was pretty crazy. We are following a woman named Maddie, and she lives on this kind of isolated mountain with her husband, William. And we learn very quickly that William is not a nice guy. He is definitely abusive and controlling towards Maddie. And Maddie seems to be very fearful around him. So one day, William and Maddie are out hiking, and Maddie happens to come across some mutilated animal carcasses. And she's like, what the heck is going on? It appears that a large animal has done this, and there's some type of big like animal or monster that is up in these mountains. And Maddie's really scared, and she doesn't really want to tell William what's going on, but she does. She thinks that he's gonna like wig out about it, which he does. So they go back to their cabin, and these 3 people come up, and they're trying to kind of look for a beast in the mountains. They're like Bigfoot hunters, and like they look for these cryptids, these like mysterious mythological animals. So they come across Maddie when William isn't home, and they ask her if she's seen anything, and she's really worried that William's gonna find out that she talked to these people. So she tells them to go before her husband gets home. She doesn't want him to know what was happening. So they leave, and overall, I mean, I don't know how much I can say about this book. I mean, I guess that's really all I'm going to say as far as the plot point goes, but we're really watching Maddie deal with the fact that there could be a monster outside and the fact that she lives with a monster inside the house. So it was really good. It was actually a little bit creepy and very atmospheric. Thought it was going to be a little bit more scary than it was. I feel like I heard some reviews about it where people were like, this is really unsettling. It's really chilling. And I didn't get that. It was kind of like a light horror, I guess. Definitely more of a thriller for me. And it was just okay. I gave this one 3 stars. If that's something, if like horror light is something that you're looking for, maybe check out Near the Bone. And the next book on the list is Baby Teeth by Zoje Stage. Hopefully I'm saying her name correctly. And in this one, we are following a mother and her child, Hannah. The mother is starting to kind of realize that something seems to be off with their child, Hannah. So Hannah suffers from what the doctors are kind of saying is selective mutism. Like there's no psychological or physical reason why she can't speak, but she's just choosing not to speak. So some strange things are going on, and we get Hannah's perspective. So we're going back and forth between the mother's perspective and Hannah's perspective. And as soon as we get into her perspective, we figure out that Hannah loves her father and she does not like her mother. She thinks that Mommy is getting in the way of her relationship with her father. She doesn't like anything that Mommy does. She doesn't want Mommy around. So we're kind of watching this family deal with the manipulation of this child to where the father doesn't really see that anything is wrong. Of course, it's his little girl. And the mom is like, no, you don't understand how she acts when you're not around. And then of course, we as the readers are getting Hannah's perspective where we're like, whoa, something is definitely wrong. And overall, it was really good. I gave this one 3 stars. The ending was not my favorite, but if you're into like psychological childhood books, this was kind of an interesting one. There were some really weird elements to it. Like when Hannah was with her mother, she would speak sometimes, but she would like speak with a French accent, and she had this alternate personality that she was kind of pretending to have with her mother. And that was really fascinating. That was actually super enjoyable for me. So if you think that that's something you might like, check out Baby Teeth. But I have a better one for you coming. And the next book on the list is Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. And this one was really fun. Alexis is this prestigious doctor, like a big deal. Like her name is basically on the hospital. I don't know if that's true, but it's that level, okay? She comes from like a long line of prestigious doctors. And one day she is driving through a small town and her car breaks down. And of course, a really, really handsome small town boy comes to save her, and that is Daniel. And Daniel is like super hot. He is a carpenter, and Abby and Daniel start to form a relationship where it's kind of a secretive relationship. We are watching them try to mesh their very different worlds together. Her family is very judgmental of everything that Alexis does, so she's hesitant to bring Daniel kind of into her life to introduce him to her family. And then Alexis is also dealing with an ex-fiance who is like massively controlling and wants to get her back, and he's like all up in her business trying to get her back. So she doesn't want to bring Daniel around, but she really likes Daniel. She goes to visit Daniel down in his small town, right? All the time. And it's kind of like when she's down in his small town, he will bring her around his friends and he just wants to show her off. But Alexis doesn't want to do the same. She's kind of keeping him a secret. So we're watching along as they are meshing their worlds together. And it was actually a really, really cute romance. This one was actually a little bit better than I expected. I ended up giving this one 4 stars, and I definitely recommend if you're looking for a cute romance with that small town feel and some kind of complicated issues, of course, along the way. This one was really cute. The next book on my list that I read in May is The Holo Places by T. Kingfisher. And this is another one that I'm going to kind of classify as horror light. It's a little bit creepy and unsettling, but not too scary if you're kind of just a little bit into horror. In this one, we are following Kara, who is going to live with her uncle after a breakup. So her uncle works and lives in this museum of curiosities, which is really just fun to hear about in itself. And one day, Kara finds a portal in this museum. And of course, she goes through the portal to kind of check out what's going on. And she finds that this portal leads to different worlds. And in these worlds are very unsettling things. There are some creepy creatures that seem to be trying to kill her. So we follow Kara along as she tries to find her way back to the real world. And this one I actually really liked. The descriptions in this were so good. This one was atmospheric as heck. I kind of felt like I was there with the descriptions. I mean, look at that cover. So good. This kind of gives you an idea of, one of the other worlds that we're looking at. It was just really creepy and in a good way. Like, I really enjoyed this one. I gave this one 4 stars, and I definitely recommend if you are just getting into horror or you want something that's a little bit scary but not too scary. The Holo Places was a great one. The next book on my list is The Ex by Frida McFadden. Hi, welcome to my Frida McFadden channel. Just kidding, but I love her. We are following Cassie, who meets this man named Joel, and Joel seems like the perfect guy. He is super sweet, super romantic, and they start a relationship. And Cassie thinks that Joel is the one that she's gonna spend forever with. But we quickly find out that Joel has a crazy ex-girlfriend. And when I say crazy, I mean this chick is straight up stalking Joel. She has like Track My Dude on her phone, so she knows where he's going. We get a little bit of her perspective so we can see just how crazy this chick is. And she starts actually stalking Cassie too. and she starts doing things that are making Cassie kind of feel hesitant about being with Joel. But Cassie loves Joel. She's like fallen in love with him at this point. She wants to marry him. And we have this crazy ex coming into the picture who is just shaking things up and doing all these disturbing things to Joel and Cassie. Like, all of Joel's friends seem to be like comparing Cassie to his ex and kind of like, just like, you aren't as good as her and she used to do this, and like his friends are weird too. And it was just really, really fun. And let me tell you, the twist in this one was, this was a twist where I actually had to stop and like my brain was broken for a second. I was like, wait, what? Like, did I miss something here? I had to stop and like go back a little bit. And yeah, phenomenal read. The Ex by Frida McFadden, very fast paced. All of her books go so quickly because she just keeps you like so intrigued in the story and you have to find out what's gonna happen next. So highly recommend The Ex by Frida McFadden. It was a great read. The next book on the list is This Time Tomorrow by Emma Straub. And first of all, I'm a little bit sad that I read the e-copy of this book because the cover is just so gorgeous. So this is probably one that I'm gonna buy anyways and add to my shelves. It is beautiful and I really enjoyed this book. We are following Alice, who is on the eve of her 40th birthday. And why do I feel like all of the crazy things happen to people when they're about to turn 40? Like, that's a little scary. We learned that she is pretty happy with life. She's happy with her job. She has these great friends in her life, but sadly her father is fallen ill. He's actually dying. So on the eve of her 40th birthday, she goes back to her childhood home to visit her father at night when she's drunk. So she ends up falling asleep at her childhood home the night before she turns 40. And when she wakes up in the morning, she realizes that she is back to her life when she was 16 years old. So we have time travel elements, which you already had me sold. I'm a huge fan of anything with like time travel, alternate realities. It's my jam. So she wakes up and she's 16. It's actually her 16th birthday when she wakes up. And she sees her father again, and he's younger and he's healthy. And she starts to kind of think about things that she might be able to change so that her father doesn't end up dying so young when she's older. So she makes these changes. And as you know, when you change things in time travel, it messes things up later on down the road. So we're watching her as she kind of makes little changes and how those changes affect her life in the future. Overall, I really enjoyed this book. It was super interesting. I loved Alice's character. She was just really funny, and her outlook and her personality, I just really enjoyed it. I gave this one 4 stars, and I definitely recommend picking this one up. The writing was great, highly enjoyable. The next book on my list is The Perfect Child by Lucinda Berry. So remember when I was talking about baby teeth and I said, I have a better one for you? This is it. This one was so good. I know there's a lot of comparisons. Usually when you see someone talking about one of these books, someone else in the comments is talking about the other. We are following a young couple who are struggling to have a child, and Christopher and Hannah are their names. And they work at a hospital. They both work at a hospital, different positions. I think he's a surgeon and she's a nurse. I'm not quite sure. But one day, this little girl is brought into the hospital and she's 6 years old. Her name is Janie, and she is horribly malnourished. They say that she's like the size of like an infant almost, just tiny, malnourished, neglected, and abused child who's been abandoned. And Christopher forms a really, really close bond with Janie while she's in the hospital. And so he kind of brings up the idea to Hannah that they might want to adopt this child, or at least foster her for a while until they can find placement for her. So they end up bringing Janie home, and Janie has, of course, a lot of psychological issues. She has violent outbursts. She does some really, really unsettling things. And Hannah quickly begins to start thinking, whoa, what have we gotten ourselves into? I don't know if we were ready for this kind of commitment. Like, this child needs a lot of special care that I don't know if I'm ready to give her. But Christopher feels like this is already his child. He's connected to her. And so we're kind of watching this family dynamic as Janie begins to kind of isolate the couple from each other. She's kind of becoming a wedge in their relationship, and some pretty crazy things start to happen in this one. I thought this was such a great book. I highly enjoyed this, as I have with all of Lucinda Berry's books that I've read. I think that her writing is amazing. She's a great, talented author, so I highly recommend picking this one up. There is a little bit of a twist, or maybe a couple of twists throughout this one that I was not expecting. So pick up this one if you haven't read it yet. It's a really solid, great read. 4 stars for The Perfect Child. The next book on my list is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. And if you checked out my last video for April, I read Beach Read, and I told you guys that I am obsessed with Emily Henry's writing style. It's so casual, it's so fun. She has like this witty banter among her characters that it's just so entertaining, and this book was no different. In Book Lovers, we are following Nora, who is said to be a cutthroat literary agent. And first of all, one of my favorite things about this book were the literary incorporations. The guy in the book, Charlie, is an editor, and you kind of got to see the inner workings behind book editing and a literary agent's job. And I thought that was really fascinating. I always like reading books about writers. So in this one, we have Nora and we have Charlie, and they have a brief interaction in the beginning that kind of sets the tone that they don't really like each other much. But Nora is very close and protective with her younger sister, Libby. So her and Libby decide to go on kind of a final fling before Libby gives birth to her 3rd child. And they decide to go away for like a month to this really small town that's in one of the books that Nora is an agent for the author for. And so they go to this small town where, of course, they bump into Charlie. And in this book, it's actually more of, I would say, less of a romance, more of almost like a woman's fiction. This book definitely focuses on the relationship between the sisters way more than it focuses on the romance, which I was okay with, but I know some people have complained about that. The romance is almost like a subplot in this book. So if you're okay with that, you might love this. I was okay with it. I actually enjoyed that about it. I wasn't really super interested in the romance aspects here. I just loved the sister bond that we had between Nora and Libby. I loved, like I said, the literary details that we got to learn, and this idyllic little small town was so cute. Like, I want to go there. So I ended up giving this one 4.5 stars. Definitely enjoyed it. I was highly anticipating this one, so it was just a little bit lacking that 5-star what I was expecting, but still really solid read. Loved it. I think I'm gonna love anything that Emily Henry writes. So yeah, pick up Book Lovers if you haven't checked it out yet. The next book on the list is Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score, and I highly enjoyed this book. We are following Naomi, who recently ran away from her wedding. She is a runaway bride, and she is going to help out her twin sister, who is known as the evil twin. Her twin sister calls and she's like, hey, I need your help. Come rescue me. I've got myself in a bad situation. So Naomi goes to this town where she doesn't know anyone, doesn't know anything, and she goes to help out her sister. But her sister actually ends up stealing Naomi's car, her cell phone, her money, and ends up leaving this 11-year-old niece who Naomi never knew that she had with Naomi. So Naomi is in a new town, no money, no car, no cell phone, with this niece who has been raised by this crazy woman who's been like robbing everyone in town. They have a really bad reputation, And everyone, of course, thinks at first that Naomi is her twin sister. So she's like trying to deal with that reputation that her sister has maintained and trying to tell people like, hey, I'm new here. Like, that was my twin sister. And she runs into Knox, who is like this tough exterior guy, but he has kind of a relationship with the little girl. Like, he's always kind of kept an eye out for her. So he already knows the little girl. So he's instantly becomes involved with Naomi in trying to take care of this little girl because he cares about her. So we watch their relationship, and this is not your typical romance. It's kind of almost like a bully romance, I would say. Like, Knox isn't a super nice guy, and he does some things that I think would definitely rub some people the wrong way. Like, he's kind of a jerk, but Naomi still is like infatuated with him. And I highly enjoyed it. I thought it was very entertaining. There's a lot of family elements with his family and her family. And overall, it was just really cute. I gave this one 5 stars because when I was into it, I was completely into it. Like, these characters, I was invested in them and I cared about what happened to them. I couldn't wait to find out what the ending was going to be, and I really enjoyed it. So I gave this one 5 stars. Highly recommend. The next book that is on my 5-star tier for the month of May was One of Us is Dead by Geneva Rose. And let me just start out by telling you guys, this book is about rich people drama. This is like the rich people tea collection, okay? And for some reason, rich people drama is just something that I have been kind of fascinated with lately. Like, I just find it so entertaining because all of the characters in this are kind of ridiculous. It's about a group of women in this town of Buckhead, and they're all just like super pretentious, and we're following Shannon, I guess, as the main character. They're all kind of the main characters, but we're following Shannon, who was recently dumped by her husband, who's like this politician a-hole. And he basically dumps her for like a younger model, like a younger chick. And so Shannon wants to get revenge on him. And we are basically following along. Like, the main setting of this, I would say, is this salon where these women all go and they only have 30 clients and they have to pay like an exorbitant amount each month to stay clients there. And they basically go to this salon and just tell each other the gossip and spread rumors. And it was just really entertaining. Of course, at the end, one of them ends up dead. So you're kind of going through the book trying to figure out who's going to end up dead, like who did it, who done it. And it was highly entertaining. I actually listened to the audiobook for this one and I really enjoyed it. So I gave this one 5 stars. The next book I read and gave 5 stars is Writers and Lovers by Lily King. And this book, I don't even know how to describe this book. Like, first of all, the writing was so stunning. I was so enthralled with this story. I literally never wanted this one to end. And I don't even know, I'm sitting here trying to think of like what to tell you guys. What was this about? So it's about a girl named Cassie, and she's kind of struggling to get by. She is an artist slash writer, or trying to become a writer, but she's also working as a waitress at this job. And she is having some issues with like kind of just growing up and transitioning into the next stage of her life. She kind of feels a little bit behind her friends. They're all getting married. They're all having children. And she decides she wants to start dating. And she actually becomes interested in 2 different guys. So we're kind of following along her relationship with these 2 different guys and just kind of her growing and learning about herself and kind of transitioning into the next stage in her life. And I don't even know how to explain it, but this book was phenomenal. You have to read it to understand. The writing was so superior. It was so good. It was just immaculate. Like, it was almost like poetic in a way. It was beautiful. And I don't even know what else to say about this, but read it. Just read it. Just do it. Take my word for it. Read this book. 5 stars. And the next book is The First Day of Spring by Nancy Tucker. And this one was bananas, insane banana pancakes. Like, we start out with this child, Chrissy, and basically the first opening scene is her talking about how she just killed this little boy, like basically a baby. And she's a child herself. She's 8 years old. And we're kind of following her narrative. So it is really like a psychological exploration of a child killer. And this book, it was just crazy. We're seeing basically why Chrissy is the way that she is, the way she grows up. The other kids all seem to know that there's something off about her. They seem to be afraid of her. And of course, I mean, she comes from a traumatic life. She is basically neglected. She is starving at home. So she's trying to kind of manipulate adults in her life to be able to get food, to be able to feed herself. And it was just so deep and so really disturbing, but also very interesting from a psychological perspective to see the trauma that this child faced and basically what made her the way that she is. And then we see Chrissy as an adult. And she has a child of her own, and she is just so paranoid about being a bad mother because she never had a good mother growing up, and she's terrified of losing her own child. And ooh, man, when I finished this book, I was just blown away. This book is deep, it is dark, it is disturbing, and it was so great. The writing was stunning. Highly recommend this one. 5 stars, easy 5 stars for this. The First Day of Spring by Nancy Tucker. Definitely check it out if that sounds like something you're into, because I loved it, loved it. The next book I read was Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And this is one that I kind of put off because I've read other books by this author that I didn't love, that have been like so highly praised, and I didn't know what I was missing. I didn't know if the author's style just wasn't for me. But this book, I absolutely devoured this book. And I will say, I listened to this one on audiobook after I saw that this one was highly recommended as audio. And I'm going to go ahead and recommend that to you guys as well. If you're into audiobooks, definitely check out the audio for this one, because it's done in a way that, well, the book is written as sort of like interviews, and they have different voice actors narrating each character's part, and just the audio was phenomenal for this, but the book itself was so great. We are following this 70s rock band, The Six, and then we're also following Daisy Jones and kind of seeing how they develop into a successful band and a successful single artist on their own. And then they're kind of merged together to form Daisy Jones and the Six. It was like an iconic band. And the way that this book is written will make you believe that this band was real, but it is a fictional band. But the way that this was written, it was just so enthralling. It was so interesting. We're seeing kind of that 70s rock band culture with drugs and promiscuity and just the drama that comes along with bands getting together, and there's some romance, and it was just so entertaining. I highly recommend this one. I'm kind of mad that I slept on it for so long, but I'm glad that I finally experienced it, and I'm super glad that I experienced it through the audiobook. So definitely check out Daisy Jones and the Six if you haven't yet. Highly recommend. The next book I read was Just Like Mother by Anne Heltzel. And this one was, as I expected and hoped it would be, very bizarre, super weird. That's my jam. I really enjoyed it. We're following Maeve, who, as a child, in the beginning of the book, we see Maeve and her cousin Andrea, and they're growing up in this super weird cult. And they were rescued from the cult, and they become adults. They are placed into foster care separately or adopted separately. And as they grow up, they kind of wonder what happened to each other. So as they become adults, they reach out to one another, and Maeve is reconnected with Andrea. And Maeve kind of wants to talk to Andrea about their childhood. She wants to kind of put together the pieces of their past and heal from that. But Andrea does not want to talk about their childhood like whatsoever. She hasn't told her husband or any of her friends, you know, the life that she grew up in. So she's kind of secretive about it. But Andrea invites Maeve to come stay with her at this like really fancy home that she has for vacationing. And when Maeve gets there, she learns about this company that Andrea has been developing that is making these kind of, I don't want to say robotic, but they're kind of like the real life babies, like the babies that are dolls, but they are very realistic and they're meant to help people who are coping with grieving a child that they've lost, or maybe parents who want to become parents or are soon to be parents. And that alone, like the idea surrounding that whole thing is a little bit creepy in the way that it's written. And this book is very unsettling. There is a little bit of like gory descriptions going on, and I don't want to tell you anything that happens, of course, but just know that this one is weird. It's bizarre. It's unsettling. It's creepy. You have cult aspects. You have fake baby doll aspects. Like, Andrea is a little bit shady, and it was just really good. It was everything that I was hoping it would be. This was one that I was super, super anticipating for this year, and it definitely hit the mark for me. 5 stars for Just Like Mother. Check it out. And the top of my list for May, this book, you guys, literally obsessed. That is Something Wilder by Christina Lauren. And let me tell you, I've read a lot of Christina Lauren books and I've enjoyed them. I think I've given them mostly 3 stars, maybe some 4 stars, but oh my gosh, I was not prepared. I was not prepared for this. This book was amazing, stunning. I love it, epic. We are following Lily, who is the daughter of this notorious treasure hunter. And this book takes place in kind of the canyon lands of Utah. And her father was basically looking for treasure from Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. So those elements alone were like so fun to learn about. And Lily has taken over basically the family business. She now uses her father's treasure maps, and she takes these groups of people out on expeditions into the Canyonlands where they are going on horseback, they're staying in tents, they leave their cell phones behind. It's kind of like a little vacation from reality and a little treasure hunting expedition. And this guy comes with 3 friends, this guy Leo. And Lily realizes that Leo is someone from her past who she had a short, super burning, passionate relationship with, but they kind of went separate ways without knowing what happened. It was an unconcluded romance. And this guy shows back here, and Lily is not happy about it. As soon as Leo sees Lily, he's like, oh my gosh, I remember the spark we had. He wants to like reconnect with her, but she's like, no boo, like, where did you go back then? I don't want anything to do with you. So she takes Leo and his friends out on this expedition. And you guys, the craziest things happen, like twists on twists in this one. And there are elements of obviously treasure maps, but also like figuring out codes, and it was just so fun and I was so into it. This was another one I did not want it to end. I loved Lily and Leo, you guys. This one was so great. Highly recommend. Like, I was so thrilled and like thrillingly surprised with this one. I definitely recommend checking this one out. It was, loved it. And now I'm going to talk about a book that was supposed to be in my last video. It was an April read and it was cut off out of my video. It was my number 2 book of the month. So it was a 5-star book. It was amazing, spectacular. And that is The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. Woo! Girl, if you love a quick thriller, this is probably my favorite thriller. Probably my favorite thriller ever. Definitely in the top 3 favorite thrillers ever. Like, so good. So we're following Millie, who is down on her luck. She is basically losing her apartment. She doesn't have a job. She's desperate and stressed out for cash. and she finds a job and she goes to work as a housemaid for this woman, Nina, who has this very ritzy and basically like rich people home in Long Island. And very quickly, Millie starts to notice that things are a little bit odd in this house. Like the woman, Nina, is kind of a little bit flighty and weird. And then like there's a daughter who also acts very peculiar. And then there's this hot husband who Millie is like super attracted to. And as the story goes on, the wife Nina really becomes unhinged, like, whoa. And Millie starts to feel bad for the husband. She's like, what are you doing with her? Like, this woman's bananas. Why are you with her? Like, you're so gorgeous. And so she becomes attracted to him in that way. She kind of starts to flirt with him a little bit. And yeah, this one is nuts. Definitely check it out. I'm not going to say anything else. Take my word for it. If you love thrillers, do it. You'll read it so quickly. Like, it was so good. The twist in this one, I can't even. Do it. 5 stars, The Housemaid. It's on Kindle Unlimited. Highly recommend. Get it, girl. Get it. So thank you for watching my May wrap up. Since I am a new channel, if you go ahead and drop a comment, hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, ring the little bell alert, anything like that helps me out a lot, and then I'll know that you guys want more content from me, and I super appreciate it. I love chatting about the books that I read, and I hope you guys like it too, and I hope you guys are able to find some new ideas for books to pick up. Let me know what you guys think.